That's a prophetic. And all of us fall short. We all crack vessels. You know, the great W.H. Auden, one of the great Christian poets, used to say, I'm just trying to love my crooked neighbor with my crooked heart. And that's description, I think, of
many people probably are surprised that you are so influenced by the Socratic tradition. Who was Socrates?
Yeah, Socrates, he was quite a brother. Really was. But it's very interesting, you know, descriptions of Socrates, you know, he had a flat nose. Looks a little bit like Curtis Mayfield's nose, actually. Huge neck, swarthy, walked around, no shoes and socks sometimes. Sometimes he'd stand on one foot for 20 some hours just contemplating. That's a strange brother. The Greeks call him a topos. A topos means he cannot be subsumed under any category. He's unsubsumable, the unsubsumable. He's the unique one. And it was all about intellectual humility. He said he knows more than anyone else precisely because he knows that he knows so little. So it's intellectual humility on the one hand, but at the same time a willingness to be courageous, to think for himself against the grain. And so Socrates means much to me. The problem, of course, is that Socrates never cries. He never sheds a tear. Of course, he never wrote a word, but the representation that we have of Socrates in Plato's dialogue, and Xenophon's dialogue, Plato's dialogue is much more profound, but still usually wrong. But the profundity is something you wrestle with. You don't have to always follow through with the conclusion. The insights can be discerned even as you reject the conclusions. Xenophon's dialogues are much more didactic, but still it's quite interesting. And then there's Aristophanes' The Clouds, where you get a satirical depiction of Socrates, who was standing his head in the clouds and can't get his feet on the ground and so forth. But Socrates never sheds a tear. So that even given my own excitement about Socrates when it comes to intellectual engagement, intellectual humility, I come from a tradition that begins with tears. It begins with cries. That's why The Voice of Souls of Black Folk begins with The Crying of Water by Arthur Simmons, that grand poet, the friend of T.S. Eliot, and James Joyce, and others. The Crying of Water, precisely what your trees are about. All of those precious, priceless Africans whose bodies, it's really bones now, are sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And remember the epigraph of Toni Morrison's Beloved, 1987. 60 million or more. We don't know, it's just guessing. So you say to Socrates, anybody who never cried has never really loved. Never really loved, he never really lived. So the Socrates lived in his mind because he loved wisdom, but he didn't love people in the concrete. Because when you love people in the concrete, you're going to die when you say their corpse in the funeral, in the coffin. Or you're going to die when you find out that your loved one no longer loves you. Or you're going to cry, oh yeah, if you really love. If you really love, oh, you're going to cry. So the real challenge is, how do you bring together the spirituality of Socratic questioning with the spirituality of genuine loving? And the best answer to that question is, just listen to John Coltrane's Love Supreme. You're continually trying to give the gift that has been given to you as a way of empowering others. So that you don't just have the gift and try to use that gift to get attention, but its gift is something to give. That's what the blues men and women do. They give. That's why they don't last too long, because they give so much. Michael Jackson is a good example of that. He didn't have time to grow up almost, because he's giving all the time on the stage. And on the stage, he was a master. Once the show was over, he had wrestling to do. And the wrestling had to do with what all of us wrestle with. How do we fight off the spiritual malnutrition, the emptiness of the soul? How do we hold at arm's length the moral constipation of knowing what's right and it's stuck and it just can't get it out? That's that's a challenge in a market-driven society that's obsessed with stimulation and titillation. It's a culture of superficial spectacle and celebrity-centeredness. All of that thin stuff that is dominant in the culture that doesn't allow for deep cultivation and tending of soul and heart and mind. And Brother Michael was wrestling with that. He had more money than most of us and wrestling with it. Looked like that tended to go quick sometimes too. But for me, that is my tradition, being a blues man in the life of the mind that way. And then one last point, remember Ralph Waldo Ellison, the great artist, novelist, Invisible Man, Juneteenth. You say the blues is an autobiographical chronicle of a personal catastrophe expressed lyrically. See, so if you're going to be a blues man or woman, you have to make the catastrophic your constant companion without allowing it to have the last word. You see, so when the king of the blues say, BB, nobody loves me but my mama, she might be jiving too. That's the blues. But that's not Antigone. It's not Antigone. Antigone is alive in the tomb. All of the forces are against her. She has completely given up and caved in. And the blues man and the blues woman never caves in. Even though all you can do is just stand up there with Lucille and smile about all of that catastrophe coming at you. Strange fruit the southern trees bear. That's American terrorism. That's Jim Crow. That's James Crow. That's lynching. That's catastrophic. But she sings the song of our Jewish brother Maripol, who writes the lyrics to tell the truth about the injustice. It can be overwhelming. Terrorism is overwhelming, but the gift of black people is what? In the face of 400 years of terrorism. Still loving, still thinking, still fighting. That blues tradition is a great, and it's not a question of phenotype.
So blues and humor, really.
Oh yes, because it's tragicomic.
You talk a lot.
There's Samuel Beckett, try again, fail better. Try again, fail better. That's Samuel Beckett. And Worst Word Whole, his last piece of prose fiction. And Chekhov, I mean, my God, what can we say? Nobody liked Chekhov. So much love and so much darkness. So much compassion and so much catastrophe. That's Chekhov. Chekhov is something. And too much for America. America's too sentimental. America likes to stay on the surface. Chekhov is all the way down in the fall. All the way down. You know, he's down in the Bootsy Collins. He's dealing with that fault. You know, we got an album coming out, Bootsy Collins and myself. Oh yeah. Oh, we got an album coming out. Oh, it's powerful. It'll be out in a few months.
So tell us.
Oh, it's something else. Woo-hoo. Oh, we wrote the first part.
So we have a really, we have a really diverse audience, and so you might want to tell them who. You might want to tell them who. Yeah, you can't.
Oh, who Bootsy Collins is?
Right.
Oh. Oh, Lord. Anybody heard of Soul Power, Super Bad 1 and 2? Talking loud and saying nothing. That's Bootsy, 18 years old, with James Brown, who had the pacemakers in Cincinnati, and James Brown band went on strike against him, and he turned the pacemakers into the JBs. And the lead singer for the pacemakers was a genius named Felipe Wynn, who would later be the lead singer for the Spinners. So Bootsy at 17 with James Brown stays for 11 months, cuts some of the deepest jams imaginable, then leaves and meets another genius from Plainsville, New Jersey named George Clinton. The Parliament and Funkadelic, the One Nation Under a Groove, Agua Boogie. Flashlight, we won't go in.